so we can get,
Am I up?
yep.
All right. Take over it, man. Let's go and start out with approving the agenda as presented.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay. And we'll move on to item number 2, approve the minutes from the July 11th regular meeting.
Hold on, you're gonna need a vote though.
You need to vote on the
Yeah,
agenda.
sorry. Thank you. Need a vote to approve the agenda. All
Aye.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, motion passes. Now, item number 2, approve the minutes from the July 11th regular meeting. Those minutes were provided electronically, right? I didn't see anything.
And I've got the hard copies here, so.
Okay.
Fine to me.
Any discussion on the minutes from last meeting?
That we approve the minutes from the July 11th meeting. Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Item number 3, approve invoices and financial statements.
I just got a couple questions just because I'm not sure what I'm looking at. And I don't know what you call this.
Those are invoices.
Where it says the direct item register.
Yes,
All right. So this is the invoice.
right, these are the invoices.
All right, where it says Dickinson Law,
Uh-huh.
01-222. I'm just curious why we don't use city attorney instead of...
I use both. Depends on what it is. And if I've had, on some of this, if I've had previous conversations with the attorney in Des Moines, or if I've had previous conversations with Dave Dixon. So, yeah, occasionally you'll see invoices from Dixon's office come through here as well.
So it is still Dave that's city attorney?
Yeah.
And he still bills.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
He doesn't work for free.
And then on page 4, down at the bottom, where it says consumer confidence reports,
Yes.
I'm just curious what that is.
Every year we are required by the EPA to produce a consumer confidence report that details the tests that were taken throughout the year, and if things were detected, for instance, we do total trihalomethanes and haloacetic acids, and that's a quarterly test. And we always have some range of a detect for the different chemicals that are in there, and so we have to list out what that range is from 0.005 nanometers to 0.103 for whatever we've found that they've had a detect on. So if we've done, let's say we do 100 tests and 90 of them, they don't detect any of those chemicals in the water, we don't have to report those because they're not in the water. But anything that does show a detectable trace based on what the state's limits are, then we report that stuff.
So you send it both state and federal level, or?
Well, yeah, we send it back to the DNR. So at this point, the DNR's got primacy in it, but they compile that and send it back out to the EPA. But it's an EPA requirement that we have the consumer confidence report, and it's something that is done once a year, and the DNR will send us out a compilation of most of our results for the year because they're getting our monthly operating report. But they won't have everything in there, and so they'll give me a list of what we need to provide, and we use the Iowa Association of Water Agencies, because we're a member of that organization, to produce that consumer confidence report. So I, in turn, send my information back to them. They come back with this template, and that goes into the DNR for approval. And so we've had, we'll go back and forth on a couple different things, this needs tweak, that needs tweak. And then, once we've got the DNR's approval, we go ahead and we have that printed, and we have so many copies delivered here. We used to mail those out to everyone. A few years ago, they changed the law that allowed us to present an electronic copy. And as long as we notified the customers where they could find that copy, and they didn't have to have a subscription, so I can't put it on Facebook, but it has to be on a website that's readily accessible, then we can post it on that website. And
So it'd be the water website.
yep, and so it's actually Iowa Rural Water hosts that for communities, and we're a member of Iowa Rural Water too, so we have access to that. They host that for us, free of charge.
It's the association that charges that for.
But it's the association that put together that information
For
and that template
publication.
for publication, and that's what we're paying for.
All right.
As well as those printed hard copies.
I think I only got a couple more questions. That'll be page 10. There where it says disconnect notices, I assume that's printed copies of disconnect notices.
Right, that's just our forms, and then
Do we really anticipate 3,000 disconnects, or does that really happen?
that really happens.
Does it
Yeah,
really?
it really does.
Over a year's time, or?
Yeah, this will be a supply for a while. A lot of
But
times it's
yeah,
just cheaper, and I don't know what to expect right now because we're still in transition.
I
So,
just seen,
yeah. And
well, we have 10 or 12,000 customers probably.
last month, we sent out
Over 500, you told me,
disconnects.
disconnects.
But prior to that, we sent out 1,200 reminder notices. So,
So.
but that was our
First you
transition,
send out
so.
a reminder notice and then they get the disconnect.
We did. We aren't anymore.
We don't
Now that
get
we
it.
switched to monthly, the disconnect is gonna be the only notice that we use here. And that's gonna serve as the reminder and the disconnect, because we only have to send out one form. So that we're gonna cut back on postage by not doing that and having
And
both
forms.
forms, right?
As a follow-up question, how many of them actually get disconnected?
We had,
Last month, it was our first month.
yeah, so 2 weeks ago, we did our first disconnect where it was the whole community, and the ladies worked really hard to set up payment agreements with several customers. And I think when staff left that morning, 86, they had 86 shut-offs that they had to go out and complete that day. And that is the most by far, but again, we had the whole community. So it's the first time that we've gone out to do the whole community in 1 month.
What if a customer gets disconnected? I assume then there's a reconnect fee and
No,
there is no.
no. There is an assessment. If the bill is not paid by 5 PM the day before disconnects, and we send out that notice, so if the bill is not paid by 5 PM, which is gonna, so it's always a Tuesday, there is a $40 assessment that is added to the bill. And that's, takes care of internal labor as well as field labor to go out and perform the disconnect and the reconnect. And we haven't, I know that there are communities across the state that have, for every community, there's a different plan.
Sure.
But we've talked internally as far as looking at, what could we do? What would it look like if we did have a reinstatement fee, if we did, but again, we're already assessing a $40 penalty. To add something back on top of that, you're looking at the customers that have a challenging time paying their bills as it is, to in turn add more to that, can be a little disconcerting.
Exactly what my next
So,
question is.
we just,
Could we make it easier for them?
yeah, we try and not add insult to injury.
Yeah.
And I realize some people probably don't think that that's how we operate, but you're
Bottom
right.
line is keep the customer.
Yes.
So the people who get set up on a payment agreement, they pay that fine as well? or penalty?
Not as long as if that agreement's set up before the penalty is assessed.
Is there a policy for how someone sets up an agreement with the water department? Is
No.
there interest charged?
No,
No.
there's not.
They're already assessed, by not paying the bill on time, they're assessed the 5% penalty. And then, if they call in and say, I can't pay it on Wednesday, I can't pay it till that Friday, we put an agreement on it, it holds it, and it doesn't charge that other $40.
Okay, so they are
There's no-
charged at 5%?
They do, everybody gets charged the 5%.
That doesn't pay by
That doesn't pay by,
today.
yeah.
Let's say today.
Yeah, today they're due, so if it's not paid by 5 o'clock tonight, I'm gonna close out that door and I'm gonna assess penalties yet tonight. So if you go online, you're still gonna see those penalties.
So can somebody foreseeably, is there a year, 2 years, is it months? How
What,
long do they have to pay?
It depends on the extent of the bill. Obviously, if someone, where we've had instances where customers have had an extremely large leak, we go out quite a ways on allowing the repayment of that because of the dollar value attached to that. If it's a normal bill and we call in and I can't pay it today, they've got guidelines that they run by.
We tried to, just with the transition and trying to figure out what our new normal is, we were trying to get everybody to get it paid before the 15th because that's when their next bill was due. So they were, they're adding up and that's kind of the situation we were in before. So everybody, most of the payment agreements were for last Friday the 12th that needed one.
How many payment agreements do we have?
Oh, I bet we probably made 200.
And
Just
the
because
board
of-
doesn't see those or approve those?
No.
I mean, they call in, we have it pulled up, we have a thing in our, software where we can do it, we can run reports. If they haven't, then we have to follow up on it, but for the most part, if they make them, they do get taken care of. We have a handful of them, probably, that don't. They've either moved or,
I personally would like to see, when we get our agenda and the meeting comes, to see what the payment agreements are and
you want a copy of every one of them?
to see that.
That's the only way I can do it. I can do the report, but if it's already paid, you aren't gonna see the ones that were made and done.
Couldn't you give us a summary of how many agreements are there and what the total dollar value is?
I can look into that.
That would at least be a starting point. I would assume that at some point in time,
I
the
mean,
board
what-
should be the one that says, yes, you have a payment agreement, or no, you don't.
Do you wanna field all those calls? I mean, I don't know how I don't know, how you would do that, because we only meet once a month. So how do we,
It may be a policy,
policy.
in having a policy in place to give staff some parameters
Sure,
would be the way to go. Even
Okay.
if it's, hey, staff can set up payment agreements. Because right now,
okay.
there isn't anything like that. Unless there is something within the operational procedures somewhere, but it said no.
Make time to take care of that.
Well, it might be worth, asking other water departments around, what do you do for,
And it is truly, we've had that discussion with other places before, and some of them will make them, some of them won't. I mean, it just depends on what they've been instructed to do, and
These are just payment agreements for a particular invoice.
for their bill.
If they don't,
Right.
do you ever run into a situation where they kind of go together, they're making payments on the payment agreement and they run into trouble with their subsequent bill?
Occasionally, but typically what it is like somebody's had a high bill, and so it's $1,000, and so they can pay $200 a month towards that plus their regular bill. Is typically how that agreement is made. So, but if it's like just my personal bill that I can't pay on the 15th, but I can pay it this Friday, then it's just late and we don't need an agreement. But if I can't pay it until September 6th by 5 o'clock, the bills are due, or they're shut off on September 7th. So maybe some people can't pay it until the 9th. So then we just put a hold on it till the 9th if they've called in, and then they pay it then.
And just for clarity, you don't make adjustments to their bill. That's
No.
the
No,
board.
that's all
No,
board.
The board
No.
approves all the
There's
adjustments. so
no
they're just-
adjustments.
They're just making a itself.
Yep.
On the balance.
Then one more question. On page 13, it says Nathan's boots and annual fee. I'm just curious what the policy is on
Boots.
personal equipment or boots or what we get. Do we
You
get
pay
safety glasses?
$100, they are given $100 per employee per year. So like Nathan had gotten his a year ago. I mean, I look up and see when the last time they purchased them, and then the department pays $100 towards it. So then they pay back the difference if we pay it in full, or sometimes they pay their
So we
share.
paid his $172.48 in full.
His was 156.48 of it. The other's a fee, an annual fee. 157.48 was his, and then payroll deducted the 57.48.
So the overage.
Right, he pays.
Okay.
Yep, they pay anything over $100.
So $100 a year, is that just for boots or is that just for any?
Boots.
Boots.
Just boots? Do they have steel toe boots?
Yes, I do.
They don't have to have the metatarsal guard?
No.
Just steel toe.
Just steel toe.
All right, I'll leave you alone.
The leak detector for $5,000?
Yes.
How's that work? Is that a sonar type device?
It's a ground mic. They can move it along the ground and it's listening through. And we've demonstrated a number of different units and looked at one a couple of years ago that was supposed to be great, and we actually got it out in the field and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. And this one, when they field tested it, it did what it was supposed to do.
So
And so they could, it's got little like, feet on it that it'll sit just above the ground. And then you can hear, and they're listening for like a sizzle or a roar or something where that leak is. And typically, it's if we know that we have a leak, where this is gonna be used, or where it has been used, we know that we have a leak, but common sense says that just because the water's coming up here, I don't know that the leak is right here, especially when my water main is over here. And so they'll go along versus chewing up 100 feet of street, which we've done in the past, because of frost or something else, where we think that the leak is here because that's where the water is actually coming up. This will save us time and money.
So has
Save
it
us
been
resources.
used and
Yes.
has detected leaks? and-
Yes, it helps us pinpoint where they are so that we're not just digging a phantom hole.
Total scape tree treatment, what kind of tree treatment?
There's a great big ash tree on a plant right south of the house. It's 40-some inches in diameter. And that's a 2-year treatment. When I talked to him, it's obviously the same company that does the lawn care, but he's starting his second round of treatment with other trees in town. And he hasn't lost any trees yet doing this type of treatment, so more economical to do that, especially given where that tree's situated, and try and get somebody to come in and cut it down. There's no access to really do that without it. So,
Back to the payment agreement thing, so I feel like we've addressed it. I certainly do not want 200 bills sent to my email, I'll fire you. But would you, very simply, could you guys come up with something that we can approve next meeting, such as we're authorized to do payment agreements for up to so many days out? Make it very user-friendly for you.
Right.
So
Well, and
we-
we typically, when we do them, we tell them we can only do one payment agreement per year. Like that is what we've,
Yeah, I think what,
and I don't know where that originated. I mean, it makes me think there has to be something somewhere, but.
just come up with something that we can approve simply. And I would say that we would just want, that payment agreement has to be paid within so many days, so that there's at least a standard that we know that we can go ahead and shut off if they haven't done that.
But just for legal sake, there would have to be some kind of written policy and procedure that says this is what we can do, this is what we can't do. As far, I would think.
For shut-offs? talking about.
Sure, that's
For the actual agreement.
For billing agreement.
But if you can just, I mean, do something user-friendly that you know is gonna work, and then we can see it improve. I think that would at least address that issue.
Yeah, that captured for this next year, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the invoices and financial statements.
Second.
All right, and all those in favor of approving the invoices and financial statements, the invoices totaling $497,738.43. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion passes.
The water loss for the month, is there encouragement that we should take on that 15%, or is this a timing thing? Are we still dealing with timing?
Well, no, so, I mean, some of it's a timing thing, but the other thing that I went back and did, because we looked at the fact that in June's readings, the consumption, the billable consumption that we had all of the towns, so that was a negative reading. that we looked at. And so I actually went back to when the meter readers were here, like the 7th through the 10th of June, and then again the 7th through the 10th of July. And I pulled plant production for those days, and I looked, and it changes it a little bit, it does. But to actually try and get a closer apples to apples comparison, and that, it took it up to like 23-something% from the 15, but still significantly lower than we have seen. So I was really encouraged.
Okay.
And I'm thinking too that some of what we're seeing is, you know, we've got the 12-inch main out southeast of town, that those ditches have been wet, those ditches are drying up. The flow that was going through one of the fields there no longer exists. So those leaks were things that we couldn't find, we couldn't pinpoint those. Now that we've replaced that, we're starting to see that return on investment. And it is encouraging.
Okay, moving along the agenda to item number 4, this customer forum. This is the item reserved to receive comments from the community, our customers, for concerns whether or not they are included in the current agenda. The community is encouraged to come and speak before the water board trustees and asked to keep statements brief. Any questions are to be asked of the water board staff and board of trustees members prior to speaking to the full board of trustees, so concerns may properly be researched and answered away from the meeting. Comments are to be directed to the board of trustees only.
I don't have anything this time.
Okay? Can I get a motion to, how would we move forward on this? It's no action.
No action.
No action? Okay. All right, we will move to agenda item number 5 then. Discussion of wastewater operations.
Excuse me, sorry. This is
No problem.
The plant dial-out system.
It's working.
It is on a daily basis.
You just try to prove it's working during the board.
Well, anywhere from 3:20 to 3:30 every day, that's when they're scheduled to have a dial-out.
So,
Oh, okay.
Or tell
Oh,
them.
all of the rest.
Show them what's
Plan,
happening.
yeah. Okay. So we are on.
Item number 5, the update 28E agreement is what you have.
Well, right, so, the initial part of that, obviously, in your agenda packets, there's, just kind of a brief summary as far as what staff's working on, televising and jetting, where they need to, sanitary and storm. You know, the storms that we did have, in the last month or so have been interesting. They're, at some point, we'll need to just have a short video where I can get staff to bring in some of what they've seen. They were actually televising when one of the rainstorms came through. And they'd gone all the way down to one manhole and they were working their way back as that rainstorm came through. And you can actually watch the water infiltrate every joint as they're coming back. And this is in sanitary sewer. And it's not necessarily a shallow sanitary sewer. And they said from the time where that rain started until that infiltration hit was minutes. And just, so when we talk about condition assessment, we've talked about I&I issues. This is just visual proof of what those guys are seeing in the system. And this particular one where they're at will be a good one that we'll look at for lining, because the pipe is in great condition. It's just, we've got infiltration during rainstorms. So we got some of that stuff going on, but they have seen some interesting things that way.
The I&I study.
Yes.
Is that a fog or smoke?
It's a multiple
I think you've
year.
said this before, but I can't remember.
No, it's a multiple year, multiple step process that the city contracted with Garden to complete the work, and it's got to be between 3/4 and 7/8 done at this point. They were smoke testing a year ago right now, and Garden has compiled those results. They've identified some areas of storm and sanitary, mostly sanitary at this point, because of the I&I that they want additional video footage of. And so staff has spent a majority of time this summer out doing that work for Garden, collecting that data. And where we've got sewers that are impacted and full of stuff, they've got to jet it before they can camera. And so it's a multiple step process, because they're not always getting it clean enough to get that thing through, and they're not sure how, until they get the camera back in, what the state of it is. So jet it, camera it, until they can get all the way through. But that is a multiple step thing that Garden is working on, hoping to get everything done. And there will be a report that will be generated that will be shared with the city. Obviously, share it with the board as well. And then that will go to the DNR as far as recommendations on what the city will need to determine what steps they want to take to move forward, and what areas of concern they want to address first. There has been an issue on M Avenue West with some sewer that is causing a backup, and staff has done some video inspection of that. It's dropped. I'm not sure why it's dropped, but we need to, I guess, kind of look at what's going on there, because it's under brand new street. M Avenue West was redone in 2009. Was a part of a multi-million-dollar street project that the city undertook. This particular area did not have new sewer main installed. It was the remnants of the old system, and so they have had some issues that have developed there. But we need to, I guess, kind of be discussing what that looks like. Obviously, it's the city's infrastructure, and so the direction will need to come from them. But as this group has the oversight for operations, I want to have that discussion with you guys as well. There are different options. One of the things to not look at tearing up the street would be, I can see there's basically pipe bursting. Start at a manhole and pull new in and break the old as they go.
I believe Vermeer has to put it.
Do they?
No,
And
plug.
so, that would be one thing to help preserve that pavement. It's not something that I look forward to as far as going in and tearing up a new street, even though at this point it's 6, 7 years old. I still, that concrete is in great shape. And to disturb that is not something that I look forward to. But it is causing issues for a homeowner there, where it is backing up sewer occasionally in the house. And so it will be something that will need to be acted upon in the future.
Is it north of the fairgrounds?
It is north of the fairgrounds.
Well, I was on
So the
the,
house would be on the south side?
No, this house is actually on the north side.
Does it count? Does it count to be the
No,
north
it's-
side of the road that counts?
No, that's within city limits. And that was all annexed 3 years ago, maybe. I don't know.
Most of that one address is.
No. Not on the north side, they don't. There might be one that sits back there that does, but these are homes right along M Avenue West.
like the second or third house in from Green Street.
It would be, yes.
I remember correctly, that had been a long time ago, because it was when I was on the city council, that same home had an incident where sewer backed up and it had to be on either north, it might have been the one on the south side.
And well, this is the one
I
on
know
the
there
north
was one
side.
of them, because I remember getting a call.
Aren't there also concerns with the private line anyways?
Is it private one?
The lateral, there are concerns with the lateral being insufficient, or not insufficient, that's not the right word, but,
Compromise.
yes, thank you, be compromised as well. And so there's multiple things going on with this house. But staff have jetted and televised, and there is an area where the city main has a belly that's holding water. And it's sitting considerably lower than anything else, so. Just something to keep in your minds, I guess. One of the other things that we'll need to do this year, it's on the budget, is sludge removal out of the plants for the wastewater plants from the lagoons. Spent some time talking with some local farmers. We do have, the city's got kind of a standing offer from one local farmer for a set rate to pump it off and haul it. I've reached out to a professional organization that does that and got some just estimates from them for a similar rate depending on how we're able to remove that. And then kind of comparing numbers. So I guess continue to gather information. I've reached out to another organization for costs. An organization that's a professional, that all they do is manure management planning for farmers. And so they've got everything broken down into a radius of 1 mile, here's your cost, 2 miles, here's your cost, 3 miles, here's your cost for hauling and stuff. So to kind of give us some information when we go to move forward with putting this out for bid to have that removed, we'll have more information, and a better idea of what we can be expecting. In your packets, there is an update to the 2080 sheet. I didn't send it out because I just got it done this afternoon, but one of the questions was, if we're working on something, can we show that we're working on it? It was red or green. And so on this sheet where the ones are, and it's a little bit lighter, in a color copy that would be yellow, because these are items that actually are being worked on. Now, we may not have final action on anything, but looking at just the first one, the standard operating procedures documented, staff is working on developing standard operating procedures for plant operations and for field operations. That's something they've been tasked with. And so I don't have a final copy, but we're working on it. And so as you can see right now, all of these things, because we're just in the second month of the quarter, I have ones in there because it's something that we're working on. We've got some where, I don't know, I guess the vector control, about almost halfway down on the front page, there's a 0. Well, that vector control is the only time of the year where that's an issue is when we're hauling sludge out of the digesters in the fall. So, there's gonna be a 0 in there until the 1 month where we actually need it. But this will be an update for that. I will send that out to the city council as well, so that they have a copy of this. Unless Mike, you'd rather I just send it to you and you can forward it on, and you let me know if you'd rather.
Yeah, you can send it to me, it's fine.
Okay.
Is this something the city council looks at and addresses?
They haven't had a chance to look at it yet, so I mean, I guess that's one of the things that might be helpful is, maybe it should come from you with a little bit of background on what this is.
Okay.
Gives them a little perspective,
Okay.
and how the board is using it, how they might be able to use it as well.
With regard to standard operating procedures, preventive maintenance programs, we've started on them. When do you see things being more complete? Since we're kind of behind schedule already, what's the time frame now for completing some of those items?
I don't have a time frame nailed down yet for this stuff. Just tasked the guys with trying to get this, come up with this. They gave me, I've got a rough draft of what they thought it should look like, and it wasn't anywhere where it needed to be. And so, back to the drawing board, I need more detail. It just can't be a one-line standard operating procedure, not just one line. And you gotta explain it. I said, Joe Schmo comes in off the street and he needs to know what to do. It needs to be written so that can happen. So that's something that,
Can you change those dates on there that says due April 1st, 2016?
and this is stuff that was set up in the original 2080 agreement. There was 180 days. And so there's stuff that we have not gotten done based on the original agreement.
So what's the repercussion for not making it better?
It's up to the council, but I would say, I think as long as there's a good faith effort trying to get things done, I don't think there's gonna be an issue. At least that's my perspective. Now, you might have a council member who feels differently, but I think the idea is that it's being worked towards.
I think if this report is presented to them, then that may initiate the conversation as to, is this a good faith effort? We're doing something, is it acceptable or not?
And there are usually council
Yeah,
representation
yeah,
here
yeah.
as ex officio members, so they know what's going on.
The other thing, in July, I took and passed my grade 1 wastewater exam, and so that was something that, with the agreement and the actions that have happened since that agreement was in place, there was incentive that was supposed to occur when those tests were passed. And if I recall correctly, for every grade, there was to be a $5,000 increase in pay for the general manager's position. I've got the notification from the state as far as what I got on my test. I've got the certificate out on the wall. We've already sent off and got the certificate, but they said it would be the next thing, and that would be an actionable item by the board for that.
Mr. Chairman, I would object to the question at this point in time. I haven't seen, I wasn't part of what you say the previous agreement was. And as I recall, there was a time previously that there was contention as to the general manager's pay. There was substantial increase in pay. I'd like to see what that agreement was. And, I understand you're working hard, you're trying to get certified, but at this point in time, you've changed over to a monthly billing system, you've got a 25% increase in the water billing. I don't know, I just don't think that it's what do you want to say, a politically correct thing to do to increase the general manager's pay, you know, when everyone else is paying more. I don't think that it looks good into the public's eye. You know, I've made the objection to the question, and that you can, I guess it's up to you, you have to ask everyone, you know, do we go ahead and,
And for reference, there's a meeting usually scheduled at the latter part of the year in regards to general manager's pay. Was the terminology in the agreement that as soon as it was passed, or was it at the end of the calendar year, or when?
When the
when it
level was
passed?
achieved.
Okay, all right. All right, well, I'd like to open it up for further discussion. Any other board members be
with my
interested in discussing?
objection to the question on the table, you would have to ask everyone, do we go ahead and consider the question as far as the rules of order, and then we'd have to vote as to, yes, we're going to consider the question, or no, we're not.
Okay. We're going to consider the question of increasing general manager's pay by, it was 5,000, right?
And Brad was involved with.
Yeah, I don't recall the details, Chad, and I should have pulled that up, because you sent these up Thursday, I think, the agenda. But I do think, personally, I need to bring that agreement up and see what specifically was in it before we take action. And
Okay.
when we do take action, of course, we'll make it retroactive. But there's 4 grades.
There are.
And you've achieved the first
I have.
of those 4. So I think we need to honor the agreement, but I need to know what the agreement said in detail before proceeding.
Well, with that, then I would move that we table the pay increase until the next board meeting.
Motion is to table this topic of increased pay, general manager position, to the September regularly scheduled meeting. Is that the time frame that you're thinking of?
Yep.
All right.
Are we able to have discussion on this now?
It'll get second.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Tabling the question.
All right, a
Discussion's over.
discussion's open.
There has been an agreement set forth that it has had action taken on it.
The agreement is between the city and the 2080 agreement is between the city and,
There's a 2080 agreement, but Chad is an employee of the board, so Chad has an employment agreement contract with all of you.
So I
And
just wanna get
I don't know
straight.
that all of you have seen that agreement. I guess that would be a good starting point.
That's all I'm asking for. I want to see the agreement.
yeah.
And my employment agreement predates the 2080, so my employment agreement doesn't include language from the 2080. It talks about the duties as assigned by the board and what that is. But there was discussion prior to the 2080 of what pay would be and what the increase would be, and that was, there were emails that went back and forth between board members and council members.
Yeah.
And it was agreed to in principle, that's what we've used as a
Was there official
basis.
vote taken on the agreement?
There was a vote that was taken to increase the pay back in November,
Yeah.
I think.
It was towards the end of last year.
Yeah. And that any subsequent increase due to attaining a certification would come through the board.
I think there needs to be a lot of research done on this before we move forward. So,
And these grades are related to the wastewater
They are.
responsibilities.
They are indeed, otherwise I wouldn't be,
You wouldn't be pursuing
I
these,
would
right?
not.
Correct, and that was the concept. As an employee with a contract myself, it probably needs to be reflected in your contract, that this is what was agreed to.
Yeah.
Since this Because the 2080 agreement does not say Chad shall get additional compensation.
And can't, I don't think.
Um, But
But all the
that's-
discussion behind the 20 agreement,
Yeah.
yeah, that
There
is
there were additional
relevant.
duties that were coming on board
Yeah.
with managing the system, and to get the additional expertise on board, Chad would take those tests and receive compensation. But again, my recommendation is any changes in salary for a contract employee should be reflected in the contract. It shouldn't just, it should require an update to the compensation reflected in the contract. It should just be very, very clear about what the employee gets paid. So there aren't any questions about when or the cost of living it automatically happens. Okay, well, was the contract updated to show what that cost of living increase was for Chad's pay? The answer is no. The amount still is the original amount that is in that agreement per the date that it was approved last, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
So, I mean,
then,
that
but then I think it states
It
whatever.
needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way there's no question.
I guess my question, is there a document that had action taken on it by the board? Because this was probably previous to me becoming board. That said with each grade, you will get an increase of X amount of dollars.
There wasn't a specific document other than there was an email train that was agreed to in principle by the board and the council and the representation thereon. I mean, it wasn't the whole council, it wasn't the whole board, it was, Brad was involved, Mike Moore was involved, and the different city council members that were involved in the planning of in the run-up to the 2080.
Again, I think that was assumed that there would be an adjustment in your contract to reflect those additional duties. That's just my perspective as part of that conversation.
Okay,
I think it would be beneficial not only to you, but to the board as a whole and to the city, to have that signed document. And that upgrade or update to the actual contract.
And if you could bring that email trail or paper trail or whatever to the next board meeting, I think that would be helpful. I think if there was indication that that's the direction we're going to go, it's a no-brainer, that's the direction we're going to go. I'm the least politically correct person in the world. I know that people work their ass off and they deserve to get paid for that. I mean, the school system's a prime example. They deserve to pay if they meet the education. Doesn't matter what your perspective is on the school system, it's the same with the water board. If you did the work, and we've indicated as a board that that's the way we should go, to me it's a no-brainer, that's the way we should go. But if you could provide us with that, I think that would be very helpful.
That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah.
and with that paper trail, it sounds like an update to the contract is in order here.
Well, I think it-
Right?
It'd be beneficial to Chad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
Understand what,
guaranteed what happened.
what steps come, if this is accomplished, then this is what's done.
Yeah. And like I said, if the board, even previous to some of us being on it, alluded to that, we need to honor that.
Yep, of course. Okay. Any further discussion on tabling the item till the September meeting? Okay. Can I get a vote to table this discussion of make general manager compensation to the September regularly scheduled meeting? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes.